The world is changing at an accelerated pace, transforming how we engage with content, with brands, and with each other. For content creators in this new world, production techniques are evolving as well to keep pace with the demand for new content and high-res formats like 4K and HDR. Thanks to the cloud, we can now edit this media securely from anywhere. The home, the office, even hotel rooms.
Especially during the pandemic, on Ghostbusters Afterlife, our team was able to update media, update render files, create mixdowns, all in different places between our home systems, remote systems, and where the Nexus was. And I can't imagine any other system that could do that.
Avid NEXIS shared storage sits at the heart of today's distributed workflows and is proven and trusted in the most demanding production environments. Avid NEXIS offers diverse options that let you build a collaborative workflow that's right for your team, wherever they are and whatever they're working on. It all starts with the Avid NEXIS VFS virtual file system. Optimized for accelerating media production, the intelligent VFS virtualizes your on-prem or cloud storage into a single pool of shared resources that can be accessed by hundreds of team members.
Nexus is an essential part of pretty much any movie when you have a crew as large as the crews that we have on a Marvel show.
Here's another great feature. With support for Avid Media Composer editing systems as well as third-party tools, Avid NEXIS enables easy collaboration and fast turnaround with your preferred video, audio, news, sports, or graphics production system. For on-premises teams, the new Avid NEXIS F-Series of storage engines combines with Avid NEXIS VFS to raise productivity even higher and adds unmatched levels of storage performance and capacity to your workflow. If you later decide to use the cloud for storage, it's easy to migrate with your Avid NEXIS VFS software from F-Series to a public or private cloud. Our new Avid NEXIS Flex subscription plans offer a choice of on-prem, cloud, and SaaS deployments, or move from one environment to another anytime. Avid gives you the unprecedented ability to cost-effectively manage media storage far into the future. As the industry continues to pivot, Avid NEXIS Shared Storage provides the rock-solid foundation needed for creative success and agile business operations. For teams in demanding post-production environments facing increasing pressure to deliver high-quality content faster, Avid NEXIS sets the standard for large collaborative workflows. For mission-critical broadcast workflows, Avid NEXIS provides the highest level of performance and redundancy, along with the consistent reliability needed for news, sports, and live production. What can you achieve with Avid NEXIS? Produce more high-quality content faster, extend team collaboration from anywhere. Meet the demands of today's rapidly changing production environments. Avid NEXIS VFS, Avid NEXIS F-Series storage engines, Avid NEXIS Flex deployment flexibility, the foundation of your success.
Avid NEXIS all the way.
Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Utscher from Avid. I work for the Market Solutions team here at Avid, working on primarily our storage solutions. And I'm going to introduce the presentation this morning with some assistance in terms of asking questions. So throughout the presentation, if you do have any questions or queries that you might want to just put forward to us, if you use the Q&A icon here and then just type in what your question is, some of my colleagues from our video market solutions team and our audio team are available, and we'll respond to those questions. At the very, very end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask other questions. So if we go through the this presentation and we don't answer all the questions immediately, we'll try and catch them all at the end. So again, my name is Kevin Utscher. I work for the Avid Market Solutions team, and my focus today is around Avid Collaborative Storage, the Avid NEXIS storage platform. So the agenda for this session is around the role of media in your mission. How are you actually utilizing media within your mission? Some of the storage challenges that we all face, and it doesn't matter whether you're a small post-production team or a very large enterprise and broadcast team, the storage challenges are actually quite similar in many ways. Then we'll have a sort of a very light introduction to who is Avid, what's our background. Then we're going to go into a little bit more detail around Avid NEXIS for House of Worship. And then we're going to wrap up at the end with some additional creative tools that we can add to the Avid storage solution to extend your creative pipeline. So let's move on. How we're using media today in the context of engagement with your congregations. Video and audio are playing a huge role in the way that we actually reach out to our audiences. So the content does enhance your congregation's experience, and it will help build the community and expand your reach into larger audiences and larger congregations. So helping you to send out your messages, attract more worshippers. But the creation of the content really is all about delighting your audience, enthralling, engaging, and also keeping and retaining the members and the guests in your mission. So there's a whole list of reasons why media is so important in terms of the impact it's going to have on your mission. There's a little question popped up there. So when we consider storage in a media workflow or in a media production environment, there are a number of different challenges, and they range depending on the type of use case you have, whether you go for a small configuration all the way up to an enterprise class, huge storage system for hundreds of users. So if we can start small, or we can scale very large. But more often than not, quite often, one of the big questions that we hear is, the storage solution that I have today cannot keep pace with the increasing demand for more content. And this has become more and more relevant over the last 2 to 3 years, as, for example, 4K content has become much more widely used. So shooting and capturing 4K content will require higher performance storage and potentially would need more capacity to store that data. So like with any storage system, whether it's on your smartphone or some other device, more often than not, sometimes you exceed the need, and you will need more capacity. One of the other things as well, which is something we don't see as much these days, but it depends on the size of the organization. Storage that resides inside a laptop or even a workstation, or it could even be an external storage device. Typically, these are used today, in some cases, as locally attached storage. Now, these devices, you can obviously digitize content to them, and you can edit off them and things like this, because they're quite fast storage devices, especially newer generation SSD drives. However, the big challenge with local storage is you can't collaborate, you can't share. So if you need to provide a copy of the media to a colleague, then you need to create another copy of the content for another user to use on their workstation. So very quickly you can soon see that actually, depending on the size of the organization, depending on the media workflow, you can end up with a lot of different individual disk drives with multiple copies of media on them, and trying to sort of manage that content, determine which is the latest version control, all those things become an added challenge to the workflow. The other thing as well is that storage solutions need to be very open. They need to be very flexible. So they're not just for supporting, storage supporting just Windows clients, or storage supporting just Apple clients, or even Avid Media Composer, Avid Pro Tools. They're going to be a range of other creative tools that you might want to connect to this storage. So it needs to be an open environment that will work with a range of different creative tools. And finally, when you kind of move away from media that's on locally attached disks or local storage, it's very difficult to organize that content. If you want to repurpose it or reuse it, finding it could be a huge challenge. So moving towards a common media library would certainly benefit a lot of organizations, where all the content can be stored in one location and it's easily searchable and easy to work with. And so we're going to kind of move towards that whole idea of collaboration and shared storage and a common media library as we go through the presentation. So we touched on the increasing demand of high quality storage, whether it is HD, whether it's 4K, HDR. Inevitably, productions are becoming more complex. There's maybe graphics playing into this and lots of other things, including audio. So, the storage solution has to be extremely versatile to be able to manage all these different kinds of media workflows, as well as a different type of media content. So storage is a very fundamental piece of your whole facility. It in essence sits in the background, and it just allows you to actually store everything onto a common storage system. So it's something that is fundamentally important to non-linear workflows. So editing solutions like Pro Tools and Media Composer, for example, would connect to the shared storage and work with the data media off that storage system. So fundamentally, a storage system is vital to your whole non-linear production process. Now, the one thing as we move along with the discussion around Avid NEXIS storage is the themes come out for things like collaboration and media sharing. So when you think of going back to the idea of having a disk drive inside a workstation or a laptop and having to copy the media to give it to one of your colleagues in your team, it's not really a collaborative environment. If we had a storage solution that would allow you to have all the media digitized or recorded into that shared storage system, which could be shared for every connected user, including remote users, then all of a sudden you've got this really elegant collaboration going on where you can be working on different media projects concurrently on the same storage system. No media copying. There's one copy of protected media on the shared storage system, and it's used and shared by everyone. So this potentially has a bigger impact in terms of improving the workflow efficiency and also improving, potentially the number of projects that you can continue to, as you're working on these things, you might be able to work on increasing the throughput, the number of projects or stories or other material that you're working on. So, bringing everything into a common storage pool and make it into a collaborative workflow has several significant benefits to workflow. And then talking about multiple contributors, the storage system is designed so that, generally speaking, we have this concept of on-premises storage where the storage system itself resides inside your facility. But over the course of the last sort of 2 to 3 years, particularly as we go through, as we've gone through the pandemic, more and more people are working remotely. And the contributors to a story or the material that you're working on may not necessarily be in the facility. So ideally, what you want to do is to make the storage accessible by anyone from anywhere. So to be able to edit remotely, be able to connect and browse, maybe shortlist or review material that's on the storage system. So you don't have to be physically in the location to use or even view the material. So as we get through the presentation, you'll see we kind of refer to some new creative tools that we have for our storage systems that will enable this whole remote working capability. Now, Avid has been around since about 1987, and we were founded on the development of technology and media tools to empower media creation. And obviously that comes in many forms, whether you're an individual editor working on video, working on audio, all the way through to organizations that have, anything from 2 to 5 to 10 to even more users, up to potentially many hundreds. So we have evolved the Avid's product workflow into a more solutions-based view of things, whereby everybody can collaborate on a centralized storage system. So we are now the global leader in the provision of video and audio technology for the creation and storing and managing and distribution of media content. So this is something that we have evolved certainly over the last 30 years. And it's certainly the direction that all our customers are heading in now, where they're trying to build out a media production workflow which scales to meet their needs, but also delivers capabilities for handling high resolution content. In the case of storage, the capacity and performance will scale and things like that. But of course, the creative tools have become even more dynamic in the sort of features and functionalities that they can provide as well. So, this is leading edge technology in many, many ways. So end-to-end workflows for creative teams, for professionals, for production and media teams, actually for independents, for individual users, for teams like House of Worship. Our tools can partake in a whole range of different media workflows. And I think we certainly have solutions that fit into House of Worship very, very well. Scalability is an important thing because as media workflows evolve, sometimes they start very small, and over a period of time, they expand, they grow. And we need to make sure that our creative tools, things like Media Composer and Pro Tools, but certainly our storage needs to grow as your organization expands and your media needs expand. So you build on a foundation, and in essence, and essentially, you kind of scale out as your needs grow. So let's move to Avid NEXIS. What is Avid NEXIS? Well, we call it workflow optimized storage, and there is a reason behind this. Our storage, Avid NEXIS, is designed only for media applications. We don't sell our storage or position our storage in any other market other than media and entertainment. And there's good reason behind this, because actually the requirements for this storage are quite different to traditional IT storage systems. So we're dealing with multiple high performance streams of media, be it video, hundreds of tracks of audio, potentially thousands of tracks. So we have to design this whole media-based storage solution to be focused on the application for media workflows. It has to be reliable. In essence, we do have a lot of organizations who are working in 24/7 operations, and so reliability and uptime is essential. The storage system needs to scale, but because we're targeting different team sizes and different use cases, we need a storage system which will actually scale from relatively small to very, very large. And you can certainly do that with Avid NEXIS. And I think one of the most important differentiators between, say, locally attached storage or devices that are inside your workstation and laptop is media protection and security. Security comes in many different sort of forms. It could be, access to the content. How do we protect and use user authentication to access the system? How do we provide different levels of device protection, from hardware component failures to the protection that we can build into the software to protect your media? So there's a whole range of different capabilities in NEXIS designed specifically to address media workflow needs. Now, we have two elements that come together with the NEXIS system. First of all, there's the physical storage devices. We call these the Avid NEXIS F series, and they are a range of, or a family of modular storage systems. So you can actually, start relatively small and build and add on as your needs grow or as your needs change. And, the needs might be, I need more performance, or I need more capacity, or I might need more user connections. So, we've intentionally made this NEXIS product family very flexible so that we have the ability to work with small teams all the way through to very, very large teams of hundreds of users, if that's the case for example, in broadcast, television broadcast. But I think fundamentally with NEXIS, the most important aspect of NEXIS is this file system. This is an Avid designed, Avid developed file system, which basically provides all the intelligence and all the capabilities of a shared storage system. So it provides the ability to scale upwards seamlessly. It provides the security and media protection. It allows you to manage the user access privileges to the storage system. So you can allow or disallow individuals or teams to see certain media projects. There may be, media on there that's sort of very sensitive material that you don't want everybody to see, for example. So, you can limit access in a very controlled way. But fundamentally, the whole of Nexus, the hard disk drives, the flash storage solutions, and the file system come together and deliver this environment of collaboration. So as we bring content into the shared storage, we only need one copy of the media, and that's literally shared by everybody accessing the shared storage system, the Nexus system. So we don't have to have multiple copies. There's nobody copying takes place. The media is protected. We have protection from hardware failures and a whole range of other things as well. So it's a very resilient, highly scalable solution that will meet the demands of most media workflows that we've seen over the last few years. So why do you need shared storage? Why not continue to work with local storage? What are the real benefits of shared storage? Well, if you can enable everyone across your media team, video and audio creative teams, and you can collaborate on the content. So, we may have a number of video editing seats where they're working on different sort of flavors of content for different needs. The audio team could be in there doing some work on the audio sessions for the live material that they've captured, but they want to turn that around and actually integrate that audio with maybe the media composer and the video team. So again, we can create some pretty effective and fast turnaround between video and audio. And because it's shared, as I mentioned before, we don't copy anything. We have one copy of the material, the media, whether it's video or audio or graphics or whatever the type of content you have. And we only need one copy, and it is protected. But then we can actually choose to say who has access to that content through the Nexus file system. So this gives you a whole range of new opportunities. So whether you're working in a large scale environment, you can have a mix of live material being streamed, interspersed with other content that you're editing and putting together, and it allows you to actually grow the different ways of actually delivering the content to your audience. So some of the benefits of shared storage. So bringing together your storage into a centralized library or a pool of storage. So rather than having distributed disks or distributed storage systems, we try and centralize this so it's a common pool of storage. Collaboration is key. I've mentioned that several times already, but it does allow the capability to have multiple people connected to the media at the same time, all working together. Accessing content, it's very secure. So it means that you can actually have individuals, or you can have groups or teams of people connected to the storage, all working on the same project. Again, no media copying, but also as we're working in a collaborative way, in essence, imagine you like a parallel process where you've got all these things happening at the same time. You can actually accelerate the way media is turned around. So, rather than having to wait for media to be copied or media to be shared with somebody else, when you're working in a collaborative way, you can very quickly begin to turn around your media projects much faster, and potentially, you get more throughput, or certainly it gives you more time to finesse and make the content maybe a much richer experience when you have more time to work in it. And fundamentally, one of the critical things is your media is valuable. Whatever the content is, whether it's video, audio, graphics, you own it, it has some value, and it will be intrinsically valuable for the life of that media. So ensuring that the media is protected is critical. Now, when I put this diagram together, it was intended to be very, very simple, but it tried to kind of position, on the left-hand side, we've got video and audio being captured into the shared storage. We have our video editing solutions connected to the shared storage, working with the same media. We have our sound and audio tools working on that same media content. We might have animation and graphic systems connected to it. Ultimately, the finished piece would need to be delivered. So everything can all actually happen on the same storage system. So you're not having to move or copy content to other storage devices to share it with another person in the creative process. I did touch briefly on the remote capabilities, the ability for remote contributors to work with the same media. So working from home or working at some remote location, if you want to connect to the media that everybody else is using on the on-premise system, we have tools that will enable you to do that. You can connect through a media composer editor, and you can edit the material at home or in some remote location. Or you can browse and shotlist and view material using a browser-based interface. So we're sort of providing the capability to enhance your overall media operation rather than it just being on premises only. We expand out to make all the contributors wherever they're located to be able to access the content. And the video kind of touched on cloud solutions as well. So Avid NEXIS is available in a number of different deployment models. One of them is the on-premise model where we have the physical storage devices in your facility connected to all your creative tools. Then we have another one which is we can move production into the cloud. So we have a solution called Edit on Demand, which is basically cloud storage, but using the Avid NEXIS file system and Media Composer editors and others to connect and work in the cloud. So we have a very flexible storage architecture, very flexible deployment models. And, of course, the industries are changing. The media industry is changing massively. Technology is moving on. Cloud is becoming a bigger and bigger feature for everybody. We can work in a hybrid environment where the storage is on-premise, the media is on-premise, and maybe you have cloud storage for backup or nearline storage. So there's a number of different scenarios for deploying different types of storage and using different types of workflows. This is just a slightly different view of it with, the product images in place there. So Avid Media Composer is our video editing tool. It's, has been around for quite a number of years. It's been right from the birth of Avid back in 1987, and obviously has continued to be enhanced over the years. We've got Pro Tools. We've got the integration of Pro Tools in the audio consoles. We've got Nexus storage, and this solution called Avid NEXIS Edge are some additional creative tools to enable remote users to access your content. We'll touch on that in a few slides' time. And of course, storage in the center there. And this thing in the bottom left-hand corner is the thing called distributed processing or DP, and works in conjunction with Media Composers. So if you're doing a lot of effects that need rendering, or you have mixdowns that need taking care of, the integration of Media Composer and DP will allow DP to do that as a background task. So you can continue working on the video sequence that you're putting together, but those kinds of mixdowns, renders, and things like that can be done in the background and don't impede your work. So again, another way to kind of speed up the whole creation process. I've mentioned Pro Tools a few times. Pro Tools is the solution that we can connect to our NEXIS storage. It's been there for a number of years now, and we've got quite a large number of audio only with NEXIS solutions deployed around the world. So it allows us to actually integrate Pro Tools into a shared storage system, and we can have a number of Pro Tools systems connected simultaneously. So depending on your workflow, you can share the content or you can work as individuals. We also have recently, in the last few months, have been enhancing the interoperability of our Media Composer video editor with Avid Pro Tools. So as you'll see today and going forwards, the interoperability between video and audio tools from Avid are becoming significantly seamless as we move as we go forwards. So this is quite an exciting thing. It's something that many of our customers have been asking us to do for a very long time. So that's there today. So a combination of Media Composer, Pro Tools, Avid Storage with Avid NEXIS, you know, these all work together nicely in the collaborative world. So this is probably one slide that talks a little bit more about the detail behind Nexus. I intentionally haven't gone into a lot of technical detail because at this point in time, it's really, you know, we want to position it as, you know, how flexible this is for House of Worship and how much value this will add to your production workflow. So if you think of a storage engine from Avid NEXIS, typically we have 10 media disks inside a single chassis or a single storage engine. Now those 10 physical disks can be virtualized. And what we mean by that is that we can have any number of physical disk drives can be bound together to create a virtual pool of storage. So just to give you an example, if I have a number of disk drives in Nexus, and let's just say that the raw capacity of that is, say, 10 terabytes of storage. Rather than having, say, 10 1 terabyte disks as individual disks, we basically create this virtual pool of storage. So it becomes one 10 terabyte pool of storage. And inside this pool of storage, we can then allocate virtual workspaces, which are any amount of storage up to the maximum capacity available. So, for example, I could create a storage for myself, which of a certain size. I can create a storage workspace for another person or another group of people. And I can manage the access to those workspaces through user authentication and access privileges. Now, virtualization is for shared storage is really important because it does mean that as you expand and grow your system, as you add more capacity, for example, or more performance and capacity to your existing system, it needs to scale almost invisibly. You know, you can add the storage and grow and expand as you need to, but the pool of storage just expands. So if I start with, say, let's just say that I start with 60 terabytes of storage in one engine, and I add another storage engine on there, I now have 120 terabytes of virtual storage. So we can keep expanding like that to very large sized systems. There are also some other benefits to virtualization, which I'll come to in a second. The management of the Nexus system, managing individual disk drives, locally attached storage, is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. They're, you know, they don't, you know, storage inside a workstation, they don't give you many controls to actually do anything with the storage. When you move to a shared storage system, it becomes a centralized pool of storage, which does need some management. Now, the great thing about Nexus is we do this through a standard web browser, and it's been designed intentionally to be a very intuitive experience. So when you log into the system, you can see the users on the system, you can see the storage on the system and some other things, but we basically hide the technology from the day-to-day management of the system. So it means that you don't need to be an engineer to manage or to control or make changes to the system at all. It's very, very simple and intuitive. One other thing about virtualized storage, the allocation of capacity. So I talked about storage workspaces. So we have this pool of virtual storage, and we create these virtual workspaces. Well, let's give you an example of, you know, me, Kevin, I'm working on a project. I've been allocated, say, 100 gigabytes of storage. And I get moving on, working on my project, and I discover that I actually need more capacity. I just don't have enough space. Well, rather than having to add another physical device, the great thing about Avid NEXIS and its virtualization is I can go to my workspace and I can simply resize it, just drag the workspace. There's a graphical display. I can grab a little slider and I can increase or decrease the capacity. And that change is completely invisible to the user. the user just continues working. It has no impact. They don't have to stop. They don't have to log off or anything like that. So this idea of flexible storage allocation is called FlexDrive, and it's something that we've actually had in various different generations of Avid storage over the last 20 years. But it's actually a really clever way of managing the utilization of storage in your facility. So, for example, if you give a user too much capacity and they're not using it, it's potentially wasteful. So what we do then with the FlexDrive capabilities, we go to that workspace and we just slide the bar down and reduce the capacity. And then that capacity becomes available for other users and other projects. I've put a lot of emphasis around meter protection because, your meter is valuable. And Nexus is unique in the set of capabilities that it has in terms of meter protection. In general, all shared storage systems do have meter protection, but in the vast majority of cases, the meter protection is across the whole system. So the concept of RAID protection, or a redundant array of independent disks, there's sort of flavors of RAID protection depending on the application. And storage vendors typically have RAID 5 or RAID 6 protection on their storage, but it's across the whole system. So it's either RAID 5 or RAID 6 for every individual storage space that they allocate to users. With Avid NEXIS, one of the things that we appreciated from feedback from our customers over the years of different deployments of different Avid storage systems was that customers need more flexibility in meter protection. So they may have media on different storage devices. So it may not necessarily be all on Nexus. They may have other devices where the meter could be on a nearline system or maybe an archive. So they have copies elsewhere. So they could have a storage workspace in Nexus, which is just OneDrive protected. So meaning you can effectively lose one disk and continue to work. Or you can have a storage workspace which is protected from 2 drive failures. Now in Nexus, we also have a case where we have extremely high availability for customers who need the most extensive media protection we can provide, which is called media mirroring. But all these different flavors of media protection can reside in Nexus at the same time. So it's done on a workspace by workspace basis. So compared to alternative storage systems, the Avid NEXIS system is much more flexible from a media protection perspective, and it gives you more choice. And finally, the last bullet point about reliability. Of course, every storage device needs to be as reliable as absolutely possible. The storage hardware that we're utilizing with Avid NEXIS is from one of the largest storage vendor suppliers in the world. And it's actually also used in other mission critical environments, which are non-media related. But we use the same hardware. We integrate it with the Avid NEXIS file system to provide this integrated media solution. And this is important for a lot of reasons. We need flexibility in the physical device protection. So protection from drive failures, protection from power supply failure and cooling failures. So these all have to be resolved in the field. So effectively, the Avid storage system, all the hardware components can be hot swapped in the field. And we can deploy, Nexus systems of a certain size that can survive a complete engine failure. If something happens like a flood or a fire or something like that, one of the engines gets seriously damaged, in a Nexus mirror configuration, we can continue working and give you the access to the media, even though one of the physical engines has failed. So there's lots of ways of deploying Avid NEXIS from very small to very large, with different degrees of media protection depending on what your use case is. So some of the key takeaways from this are: moving to shared storage gives you complete access to a common media library. And you can work with the tools that you want to work with, whether it's Avid tools or whether it's Adobe, Blackmagic, etc. This storage solution is actually very open to third-party creative tools, whether they're Avid or non-Avid. It's designed specifically for media collaboration, so you can streamline your audio and video workflows, so you can get more throughput on your storage system. So, the idea of moving away from local attached disks to a shared storage solution like Nexus becomes much more valuable to your operation. And because of its flexibility around deployment of capacity, its raw performance, it will handle 4K, 8K, or HD, 4K, 8K, etc. And the flexibility of media protection gives you a really, really nice shared storage system that has a lot of power and a lot of deployment capability depending on what your needs are. So to enhance the experience with Avid NEXIS, we developed a solution called Avid NEXIS Edge, which can be integrated with the Avid NEXIS storage, and it basically extends the capability of Nexus to remote users. So essentially you can work from anywhere, you connect over the internet into the shared storage system that's on premise, and allows you can edit remotely with Media Composer. You can copy media actually directly from shared storage to your remote user. You can use a web browser Nexus Edge interface. So if you don't have a Media Composer, you can still certainly connect to your media through a web browser that would allow you to browse the content, search for it, review it, etc., and make us some short lists for the editors on the on-premise system. So this is a relatively new product, and it's something that, as I mentioned a moment ago, it's there for remote team members. So, if you're working on something in the facility and you need somebody to review it, there's a way to do it through Nexus Edge. If you have one of the team is working at home or remotely, and they want to edit the material, they can certainly have a Media Composer running and connect back into the Nexus shared storage system. They can edit there. So this is clearly something that many in the media industry are moving towards. The idea of enabling remote collaboration does all kinds of things. It kind of brings more people into the workflow, and these people could be not potentially even in the same country. So if you're looking for expertise in a certain place and you don't have it within your facility, maybe this is a way of actually giving that capability to a remote freelance or independent user that can help you work on a project that you're working on. So Nexus Edge is really a combination of Avid Media Composer Enterprise, distributed processing, which is working in conjunction with Media Composer, and Avid NEXIS storage. And there's more to come in terms of functionality with Nexus Edge as we go forward. So in summary, media is an essential and key tool used to attract and engage and return your worshippers, or to expand your audience. The shared storage and workflow solutions that we're providing for House of Worship are the same solutions that we're providing for video and audio post-production in the more general media and entertainment markets, for post-production, for sports, for news, etc. It's all the same storage. It's the same Nexus file system. It's the same Media Composer, same Pro Tools. So House of Worship is using professional tools designed by Avid to build out your media solutions that you need for your audience. So there's more information available on the Avid NEXIS web pages, and also Avid NEXIS Edge. Of course, there's material and information there about Media Composer and Pro Tools as well. At this point, we're sort of at the end of the presentation now, and I'm hoping that we may have some questions.
Yep. So hey, Kev, thanks for that great information. So we actually want to, before we launch into the questions that we've received from the folks that have attended the webinar, we wanted to try to get some information from the folks in the audience. So if you can just take a moment to answer these really few basic poll questions, we would appreciate that. We're just going to give you a few seconds to put your answer in here.
Thanks, Pam.
And there's actually, I think, 5 questions. If you just use the scroll bar, you can scroll down and see all the questions. Okay, so it looks like now we're ready to get into answering some of the questions that have been sent in during the webinar. So we've got a question here from Rebecca. How many contributors or connections can Nexis support? And does it matter if they're a combination of audio, video, and graphics tools?
A great question, Rebecca. Thank you. So Nexis can scale literally from 2 users connected to Nexis up to over 300. And that can be a mix of a video and audio, Pro Tools, Media Composer, or others, Adobe, Blackmagic, etc. You know, it's a very open storage system that allows it to scale, not just for capacity and performance, but also for user connections as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kev. Next question is from Dave. How is the media content security maintained especially if people are working off-site with the media? There's a couple of ways of answering this question. If the media is on Nexis, it's protected by the Nexus file system and the protection mechanisms that we have within the file system. If you copy the media to another location, it will very much depend on the storage device that you're copying the media to. You know, it could be another Nexus system, for example, or it could be a local disk drive. If it's a local disk drive, then you know, there's probably very little protection because it's an individual disk drive and it's difficult to add protection to individual disk drives. Okay, thank you. And the next question is from Jim. What is the smallest capacity that the shared storage from Avid offers?
The smallest configuration for Avid NEXIS engine is a product solution that was designed specifically for smaller teams. And the minimal capacity there is 40 terabytes of storage. And that same system will actually support from 2 to 24 connected users simultaneously.
Great, thank you. And the next question is from Greg. He asks, what video resolutions or formats are supported?
We can support pretty much any resolution all the way through to 8K. So whether it's uncompressed 4K, whether it's compressed 4K, whether it's HD, you know, the actual video codec used, for example, whether it's a Blackmagic codec, whether it's a Red codec, whether it's a Sony or Panasonic or whatever the codec is, the Avid NEXIS storage solution is it's independent, if you like, of the codec type. It's a repository for storing data, and the highest resolution we can support is we can go all the way to 8K, multiple screens of 8K, if that is a requirement. I mean, that is I suppose a use case that we won't come across too often at the moment, but when we look at 4K 2 or 3 years ago, you know, we couldn't have, back then 3 years ago, we could have imagined that, you know, 4K would be mainstream for everybody. So the storage solution, the Nexus storage solution, has always been designed to be scalable to support performance enhancements. So, you know, as the industry moves to faster codecs or higher resolution codecs, Nexus will continue to support those high resolution codecs, whatever it is.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And the last question that we've got here is from Ed. He wants to know how reliable is Nexus? And I think you covered the different levels of protection, so maybe you could just touch on that again as well.
Yeah, a great question. I can't emphasize the importance of media protection in any storage system, because your media is very valuable. So the media protection capabilities for Nexus actually come in 2 ways. There's protection for hardware failures. So inside the physical engine, disk drives are hot swappable. We have mirrored system disks. So if you lose one system disk, there's always a mirror protected version. Power supplies are redundant. Storage controllers. So this is the intelligent sort of head, or the CPU, for the want of a better word, that actually plugs into the storage. It's a hot swappable component. Some of the Nexus storage engines can have 2 controllers for redundancy. So if one fails completely, it'll fail over to the backup. So we've looked at lots of different aspects of physical protection, including network connectivity. So Avid NEXIS is an Ethernet connected storage system. So you can have redundant switches, you can have redundant network connections. So that's the physical aspect of it. In software, we look at protection as a way of protecting media at a storage workspace level. So again, we can have 1 drive protection, 2 drive protection, or we can go to a fully redundant system, which is completely mirrored, and that would allow us to survive a complete engine failure or multiple disk drive failures. So depending on what your needs are, the system is designed to accommodate whatever media protection level you think is needed for your business or for your operation.
Okay, great. Well, that looks like all the questions. I guess just one last call if anyone has any additional questions to enter it into the Q&A. We'll give a few seconds to see if there are any last and final questions. All right, I don't see anything further, so I would like to just thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Kevin, for all of the great information.
I would like to say thank you as well for the audience, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share some information about Avid NEXIS. And of course, you know, if you have any further questions after the presentation, or you need further information, please reach out to our sales teams or our partners, and we can help you answer those questions.
Yes, and you can always find all of the product information that Kevin mentioned on avid.com as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.